It's okay when she does it. A short horror. TW, SA, and a hypocrite DM. Names have been changed, because honestly, I forgot everyone's name. Years ago, I had to move away from my hometown. It meant saying goodbye to my siblings, my friends, and my Pathfinder group. Inevitably, after a few months, I got the itch to play a TTRPG. It had been my major hobby for over a year, and I missed it, and the social situations that came with playing. Unfortunately for me, there was nobody nearby that I could find who was interested in playing any kind of game. So I took to the internet and asked what to do. And lo and behold, a miracle was presented to me, the website Roll20. I immediately launched into finding a game, and within a few days myself and the other players joined our first over the internet call to go about learning the setting and creating our characters. The major players in the story were the DM, who we'll call Gary, a new player, Alex, and the other woman player, Bunny. Almost immediately, what should have been my first warning of what has to come occurred. During character creation, we each came up with our characters, and were encouraged to make a lengthy backstory. And when it was Alex's idea to present his character idea, Gary immediately shut him down with, "I'm sorry, I don't let male players play female characters." Alex, clearly taken aback and a little disappointed, asked Gary why he couldn't play his female cleric and was given the answer, "Men always overly sexualize their female characters when I allow them to play them, so it's not happening." I assumed Gary had some horrible cringe-worthy experience in the past, so I said nothing. And Alex appeared to accept this as well, and sadly changed his cleric into a man. Fast forward to our first actual session of gameplay, and we get the generic party meets in tavern, accepts a quest, and heads out. And we're on our way. And the moment we step outside the town, Gary announces that we will not be hand-waving traveling quickly. No, we're going to do our character's normal movement speed and keep track of every second of travel as if we were in combat. Let me repeat that. The moment we set foot outside of town, we had to start keeping track of and taking turns in moving 30 feet forward at a time, turn by turn. If I had been a more experienced player, I would have called him out on this. But at the time, Gary was only my second DM ever, and I assumed this was normal. And so, off we went, for about 10 turns each. Yep, in around 10 turns travel, or approximately 300 feet outside this giant city, with guards still in view, we get attacked by 8 Strix bandits. Okay, that doesn't make much sense, but sure. We dispatch them, move on, and about 15 turns of slow travel later, we once again get jumped by Strix bandits. This continues to happen over and over until we make our way to the mysterious unexplored crypt we were supposed to explore, and which was apparently only a quarter mile away from a city with thousands of people in it. We explore the dungeon, fight some skeletons, find some loot, etc. And then while Gary is spending about 10 minutes describing a bowl in a room we enter, I start playing with my character's icon on the Roll20 map, just dragging them around a bit because I'm bored. Gary takes exception to this. "Roll for acrobatics," says Gary. "What? Why?" I ask. "Your character just stepped off of a cliff. Roll acrobatics," says Gary, who then proceeds to reveal the next part of the map, including a 20-foot cliff with acid below, that I had inadvertently dragged my PC avatar over while bored. You can't be serious. I was just goofing around with the icon. I tried to ask Gary if he was joking. "Sorry, all icon movement is actual movement. Roll for acrobatics." A bit confused, I decide to see where Gary is going with this and roll. My ranger fails her acrobatics check, falls into the acid, and then fails 4 more acrobatics check in a row, dying in the acid river in our first session because I had played with my icon. Okay, I thought. Lesson learned. That was kind of a dick move, but I guess Gary takes Pathfinder super seriously. I resolved to not goof around at all with my next character and start rolling her up while Alex, Bunny, and player number 4 clear the rest of the crypt, get a MacGuffin, and return to town. Our heroic party gives the MacGuffin to the quest giver, wraps up a couple loose ends, and we all quit for the night to reconvene in a week for session 2. The night of session 2 rolls around, and the party returns to the tavern to round out their numbers, because some idiot drowned in acid, and thus, my second PC, Melina, shows up with Bunny, Alex, and number 4. And oh boy, do I honestly wish Melina had decided to stay home that night. We do our long run by turn travel, and after a few ambushes and one nearly deadly encounter with a buffalo, we make camp for the night. And we actually have a few good moments of socializing and roleplay. Bunny is playing a somewhat LOL random character who is neutral good. Alex and I are playing chaotic good characters, and number 4 was there. After a good 30 minutes of world building and connecting, our characters decide to go to bed. And this is when it all went sideways, in a way I never saw coming. Now, as a bit of context, this game was built as a typical game for people to have fun and make friends. And absolutely nowhere had anyone said anything about the game being a mature one, or anything about allowing lewdness. The previous game I had been in for over a year had been a family-friendly one, and I assumed that was what was typical. I was not prepared for what Bunny did after we went to sleep, and I was even less prepared for how Gary responded to it. Bunny's character, who had just been declared to be neutral good, snuck out of her tent in the middle of the night, rolled a sneak check, crossed over to Alex's tent, and declared that her character was going to SA Alex's. For a moment, I assumed I must have misheard and let out a small, but Alex apparently had no doubt and was quick to share his disbelief. What? No, Alex said. You can't do that. I don't want that. Bunny simply said, my character wants this. She has sex with yours. And over Alex's assertions that Bunny needed to stop, Gary cleared his throat and said, roll to grapple him. I was stunned. Surely this can't be happening. But no. Bunny does her roll, and she passes. And Gary and Bunny narrate what happens to Alex Cleric, which I'm sure you'll forgive me for not describing here the whole sordid affair that occurred while Alex and I sat there dumbfounded into silence. After Gary finishes narrating the act, in which Alex had his agency completely stripped away from his character, I can't hold back anymore and call Gary out. Wasn't the whole reason you wouldn't let Alex play a girl because you don't like when characters are over-sexualized or sexually aggressive? Alex still didn't say anything. In a smug tone, Gary responds, it's only a problem when men do that with their female characters. Bunny is a girl, it's okay when she does it. I'm just completely flabbergasted at this point, and even then, so far silent, number 4 does a sharp inhale over the mic. I ask Gary point blank, would you let a guy PC do something like this to my or Bunny's character? Gary says nothing. You can hear a pin drop. The silence stretches for a long while, and then Bunny opens her cursed mouth. I want my character to get pregnant. When I heard those words, my eyes stretched to the limit and I muted my mic. There was no way this was actually happening. Surely there's got to be some consequence here. Surely this has to stop. At this point, Alex had muted himself as well, and I can only imagine what was going through his head as Gary said his line. Roll a d20 for luck. I actually gasped, and Bunny rolled a d20 in the chat. It came up 17. Gary opened his mouth, and the words I'll never unhear came out. Your roll was a success. Your character is now pregnant with a cleric's child. I blinked a few times, then closed the chat. Then I blocked everyone except Alex. Then I closed the page and logged out of Roll20. I never logged into that Roll20 account again.